Hello Internet, my name is Ryan Ingram, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to find a wholesaler and what a wholesaler is. So the way this video is going to be broken down is we're going to go over just a high-level overview of what a wholesaler is, and then exactly how to find them and the things that you should be cautious of. So be sure that you watch to the end of the video just so you know how to vet the deals once a wholesaler brings one to you. As you see, we cover a good deal of information, so if you have any comments, any questions at all, please throw them down in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. So if you're unfamiliar with the terminology, then what a wholesaler is somebody that is just, it's an individual that is helping somebody get rid of a property. Now, they, unlike a realtor, they are not licensed. There's no sort of certificate that you have to get in order to be a wholesaler. Truly, anyone can do it, I think. I have no idea about the legality, what's legal to do, what's not legal to do as a wholesaler. I'm not a wholesaler. I'm not an attorney. I have no idea about like the legal structures that wholesalers have to oblige to, right? But I have purchased properties from a lot of wholesalers. Sometimes wholesalers will get a property under contract. So let's say a wholesaler comes across somebody that wants to sell their house for $50,000. The wholesaler knows that that property is truly worth somewhere in the $60,000 to $70,000 range just as it sits. So what the wholesaler would do is either put that property under contract, and while that property is under contract, the wholesaler is going to aggressively look for someone to buy that contract from them. So they could sell the contract for $60,000 or $70,000 and they would profit $10,000 or $20,000. Now, it is a lot of hard work to find good deals, so I never have any issue paying a wholesaler a reasonable fee. Sometimes I've heard of wholesalers making as much as $60,000 on one property that they found that just grossly underpriced for whatever reason, whether the owner was distressed or any of that. There's tons of creative ways that wholesalers go about finding properties that are super beneficial to both the person trying to get rid of the property and the investor trying to get a great deal on the property. I don't know much about wholesaling, but I do know it's a lot of hard work, and I know I don't mind paying people for all of their hard work, especially when a great deal comes out of that. So the cool thing about wholesalers is, just like realtors, they work on commission. They only get paid when there's a sale, and you cannot have, as somebody that's in sales, as somebody that loves sales, because there's really no income cap. Then the great news for investors like you and I is the wholesalers, all of them, want you to be on their buyers list. So wholesalers like to build this giant list of potential buyers. That way, when they find a good property, they can just send out a mass email, send out a mass text message, or otherwise contact a giant list of people to potentially buy that house. Because the quicker the wholesaler can find deals and sell deals, the quicker they're going to get paid. So it's a lot like being a realtor, but it's just not as legislated. I would say overall, dealing with a wholesaler kind of feels like you're in the Wild West, whereas dealing with a realtor really seems like a process that takes place in corporate America. It's a different feel. For the most part, both are extraordinarily legal and both have their pros and cons, which might be a good idea for another video, wholesalers versus realtors. Because the wholesalers want to build a large buyers list, then they definitely want you to find them, and they are actively looking to find you. So the best thing that you could possibly do is hang out anywhere that real estate investors also hang out. So if the goal is to find other investors and figure out where they hang out, there are a few really easy, just low-hanging fruit places that you can go. The first is Facebook. Facebook has, the Facebook groups, and in those groups there are hundreds and hundreds of groups that are specifically for real estate investors. And one of the cooler things about this is most geographical areas have their own Facebook group of real estate investors, probably multiple groups, especially if it's a hot market. So you could type in like Cincinnati Real Estate Investors Group, Columbus Real Estate Investors Group. I know they have one called Cream, Columbus Real Estate, whatever. BiggerPockets is another fantastic resource. You can go to their events, and BiggerPockets has like a events section where you can click on that, put in your area, and you could find if there are local meetups that you can attend where other real estate investors gather. So once you find out where these other real estate investors hang out, then all you really want to do is ask. When you are asking, I would recommend a few specific things because, like I said, dealing with wholesalers kind of feels like being in the Wild West, right? So there's not nearly as many rules, and a lot of people just recently became wholesalers. There's a lot of people that are advocating on making quick money by being a wholesaler. And then there are also a bunch of online courses that you can buy on how to become a wholesaler. Now, what I've experienced a lot of are newer wholesalers that bombard me asking to put me on their buyers list, but they don't have any good deals. And a lot of them have never even brought me any deals to begin with. So there is a lot of there's just a bunch of like froth on the top layer that you have to get through. But when you find a good wholesaler, the upside is tremendous. You can walk into boatloads of equity via these relationships. So even though sometimes I get frustrated at the number of wholesalers that reach out to me, nonetheless, I always say yes, because 15, 20, 30 grand of equity could easily be there on the other side. I would highly encourage you to ask for recommended wholesalers. Just the word of mouth is always the best. And if a group of people have used a wholesaler previously, then you know they are actively working on finding deals. So that would help you sift through a little bit. But at the same time, if I were just getting started, then I would most certainly ask to be on all wholesalers buyers lists. So if I were really eager to buy a property in a new area, what I would do is I would find several Facebook groups and I would get on there and I would say, like, attention wholesalers, please put me on your buyers list, direct message me for my contact information, right? That way you have a lot of people sending you Facebook messages, or you could do the same on BiggerPockets and you could have them send you a message directly. And ultimately that should very quickly get a lot of wholesalers' attentions, because again, all wholesalers want to build a massive buyers list so that they can get to their commission a lot quicker. I forgot to mention a little bit earlier when we talked to BiggerPockets, yes, there is the event feature. However, there's also Facebook Marketplace, and in the Marketplace, you're allowed to post for services that you're looking for or services that you provide. So if you have a certain level membership with BiggerPockets, then you can go on there and request that all wholesalers in this area please direct message you to be put on their buyers list. Again, this is going to open you up. Yes, you might be spammed a little bit, but nonetheless, if you have them message you first, then you would be able to filter through a little bit of that rather than just putting your contact information on the internet for anyone looking for that geographical region in real estate to find your information. You know, truly, I've chuckled to myself each time somebody has asked me this question, because it just seems really kind of far-fetched, because it's just like, the question in my brain, I almost turn it into like, how can I get contacted by more telemarketers, right? I'm not saying wholesalers call you constantly, but I am saying it's the same type vibe. Just the number of requests that once you put your information out there, once you're known as a real estate investor or a buyer, you get contacted by them very frequently. It's not a bad thing. Again, there's only upside to it. Yes, it might be a little bit annoying sometimes, but at the same time, there's such a massive scale for equity to build your real estate portfolio. And I mean, the upside truly outweighs all of the potential consequences associated with it. Because if nothing else, these wholesalers will bring you more deals that are largely off market, just because the way wholesalers operate, that realtors don't have yet access to. So it's pretty cool. It'll dramatically increase your deal flow, which will allow you to analyze properties, which makes you learn faster, which makes you more comfortable with the market, which makes you be able to make buying decisions on a much quicker basis. Now, a fair warning, just because wholesalers, again, it kind of feels like you're in the Wild West. There aren't really regulations on it or anything like that. There's not necessarily this fiduciary responsibility that realtors have for the buyers and also the sellers. So there's not necessarily equal representation there. So sometimes the wholesalers will get properties grossly under market. Let's say there's a $50,000 house, and for whatever reason, the individual decides to sell it for $5,000 or $10,000. The wholesaler finds it. He can truly mark it up to like 60 grand and sell it to you because there's no real fiduciary responsibility, right? If he can keep that 40 or 50 grand for himself, then why wouldn't he? The wholesaler is most certainly entitled to making money off that transaction, but a realtor would advise his client to sell the property for $40,000 or $50,000 rather than 5 or 10. So the fiduciary responsibility that I'm speaking of isn't present on the buyer side or the seller side. Yeah, I'm not saying that's a bad thing by any means, but what I want to point out is you want to be very careful and do your due diligence for sure when you're dealing with real estate and with wholesalers, because there isn't the same level of duty to report numbers accurately. So I've received personally several deals that say, house for sale, $15,000, ARV, $80,000, repairs needed, $15,000, right? Well, where did that repairs needed come from? Where did the ARV come from? Sometimes these numbers are embellished. Other times these wholesalers just aren't necessarily real estate investors yet themselves. So they haven't necessarily done a rehab project. They've never seen anything start to finish. They don't own any rental property, so they don't really know what rent ready is. And I've gone into several of these deals, and $15,000 was not actually the needed amount of repairs. It was truthfully closer to $50,000, and the ARV was closer to $40,000. So it's a horrible deal, but nonetheless, it's being marketed in a way that seems super appealing. But if you're truly doing your due diligence, if you're truly looking at all of the deals, if you're actually making decisions for yourself and not just relying on the input of others, then you're going to be just fine. And it's always going to be better to know more wholesalers than fewer wholesalers, because it just helps you grow your deal flow and the amount of deals that come your way. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, if you have any comments or concerns, please don't hesitate to throw them down in the comments. I'm striving to answer all of the comments. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks.